Hello, everybody. It's Vernon Stading with Devoted Pawn Consulting, and today I wanted to re-record our discussion that we had at the Pawn Conference here last week, and specifically, especially the conference discussion about growing your loan balance during COVID-19. We had some major audio issues, and we're trying to splice a couple different videos together. We figured just the easiest way to do it is to redo it, so that's what we're going to do. It's a beautiful day here in sunny Florida. Hopefully the light works out okay here in my office as we're just getting relocated down to Florida. So we'll just make a go of it. So today we want to talk about growing your pawn balance, and we're going to bring up the PowerPoint here today. And while we talk about that, I want you to think about for a minute, did anybody have a loan balance that decreased during all of this problem? I think from the beginning, really, basically everybody had an issue with their loan balance decreasing. And one of the problems with that is, we had everybody that thought we were going to have this kind of wave of loans, and we were the first ones probably that chimed in on that and thought that. But the reality is there's a lot of things that hindered us from that we really just couldn't foresee in the beginning part of that. And so we want to talk about that. But before I do, I want to give you a little background on myself. I get picked on a lot for not having my background out there, and people don't really know where I came from. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about myself, and then we'll get into loan balance. So while you're thinking about why your loan balance went down, I'm going to give you my background. I was a corporate executive for a bunch of different companies. Most recently, before leaving the corporate world, was H&R Block. And I ran the franchise and corporate operations and did merger and acquisitions for them. And I kind of became known as the fix-it guy. Whenever there was a problem with a territory or a region or some sort of district or whatever, they made me in charge of it and made me fix it. And so that's fun, and it's kind of cool, and you get a little bit of an ego doing those kinds of things. But the reality is it was really toxic and challenging to my personal life and my family life, and it became taxing, is ultimately why I became who I am today and what I do currently. So I began consulting clients because of that business. Really, I had franchise owners that would say, listen, I own multiple other companies and multiple other industries. Can you come and help me? And so I began to do that in addition to my 9-to-5 life. And I opened Devoted Consulting, which later morphed into Devoted Enterprises and what you see here on the screen. And so ultimately, Devoted Enterprises is my parent company, and our two main revenue streams or industries that we service are the pawn and jewelry industry. It's probably 80% of what we do. Outside of that, we do still consult in hospitality, in the franchise world, and a lot of commercial real estate consulting, because most of our clients have commercial real estate. In addition to that, I also own a nonprofit called Devoted Foundations, which many of you are very familiar with. It helps business owners that are in need for free or for whatever they can afford. And we use my small business advisory board, which is a group of my peer advisors, CFOs, marketing folks, that kind of stuff, to help with that. And so that's really my background. I come from a strong executive management background that I can use the skills that I have to bring to you and help you guys succeed within your business. So let's get back to talking about loans and why they decreased. When we talked about why your loans decreased in the room last week, we had a lot of different answers. We probably had 20 or 30 different answers from the owners that were in there. And here's what we came up with. We came up with the fact that tax refund season ran late and then turned into stimulus package season. So really, our core customer, our core user, basically ran into multiple checks at the same time, and some pretty good sized ones. $1,200 per person is a nice refund or a nice stimulus for them in addition to their refund. Unemployment supplement happened at the exact same time. So you had people that were laid off that probably were making double what they used to make, or near double, on unemployment. And then it's been extended really since then multiple times up to $400 a week, down from $600, but it's still a nice supplement that everybody's making. Gold prices went to an all-time high, so a lot of people were selling their gold. They were bringing stuff in. They weren't really getting loans and doing those kinds of things, so that affected us. But there's one thing that we didn't bring up and didn't get discussed in the meeting as well at the conference, and it's really what has plagued this industry for a while, and we've been talking about it for 12 years as a company, and that is that we have done very little to attract customers that are not our normal customer and client base. And so when I say things like this, I want you guys to understand that I'm on your side. I'm not bagging on the industry. I'm not talking bad about you guys, and I'm not belittling you, but it's my job to tell you the truth and the reality of what's actually going on. And the reality is the average pawn shop and average owner has done very little to attract outside of our customer base. So let me ask you a question for those of you sitting at home. And it's not a trick question. Are you older or younger than you were 10 years ago? And the answer is pretty simple, obviously, right? I mean, you're older. Well, I'm older too. And so the problem that we have is that, you know, we've got folks that we haven't really replaced. We've got our core customer that's 10 years older, just like us, and is getting older. And we haven't backfilled that with the younger generation because millennials don't buy jewelry and all the other excuses that we make. And so the reality is we have to go back after this and make this happen. Okay. So let's talk about some of the data behind why I say this to be true. NPA studies have said that about 8 to 10% of the population use us for loans. We actually think that that population is actually closer to 6% based on all the surveys and studies we've done. We've had clients and ourselves over the years have spent millions of dollars on research and marketing firms, you know, finding this data for us. But even if it is 10%, which I think is high, it's probably closer to 6%. I would say 90% of the customers in the United States will never use us. That's a huge number, and we've got to be able to do something about that. So that being said, what demographic that currently doesn't loan with us might be a target for us now? And we talked about this in the discussion hall and had some really good thought processes come up in there, and we were excited about what came up. And here's what we came up with. So your new targets, and this is, most of these we've preached targeting these folks, you know, for 12 years since I've been in this industry. So one of the things that I want to get across to you guys is a lot of this isn't new for us, but it's going to be new for you if you haven't been a customer of ours. So middle-class workers, that's not typically our hardcore user as a pawn client. Maybe some of you guys, but the average pawn, it's not. Upper middle class, that's definitely not our core target audience. Those that didn't qualify for stimulus, so that's going to be anybody that made over $100,000, basically. I think over 140,000 as families. So that's going to be your upper middle class people that usually and used to have disposable income that didn't need us for loans. The upper class executives, right? People that made several $100,000 a year or more. That's going to be our target right now. It needs to be. Business owners is a big one. So everybody knows the restaurant owner or the other business owners that are out there that are dying right now. They don't really have another option to go out there and get the money that they need. If they qualified for the PPP, it's probably already gone many months ago. Their businesses are still, you know, unless you're in the state of Florida or a few others that have reopened, you're really in a spot where they're at 10, 15, 25% capacities. And so imagine running your business and trying to make a living and trying to pay the bills at 25% of the revenue that you used to do. It doesn't work. And so they're in dire need right now and don't have many options. And then real estate flippers. If you know anybody in real estate, ask them the question, is it easier or harder right now to get more than one property financed at the same time? And they're going to tell you it's near impossible to get a second, third, and fourth finance, just the way things are right now with banks. So we have always promoted that and thought that people should go after house flippers because it's great income and you can get a lot of high-end short-term loans with them. So we're going to talk about that. So what do middle class and upper middle class have in common that our normal customers do not? We asked this question and also got some really good discussion around it, but here's what we came up with. The middle and upper class don't usually have or used to have disposable income. They don't anymore. They normally have more higher end items than our average customers. So what that means is they've typically got maybe multiple sets of jewelry that they wear with different outfits. They've got more than one TV. When your normal customer brings you in their 55-inch TV, that's the only one they got or the biggest one they got in their house. We're looking at, you know, in my house, I'm ashamed to admit it, but back in Minnesota, I've got 6 TVs that are 55 inches or bigger. So those are the types of customers we need to go back after. We've got high-end electronics. They got big boy toys. What I mean by that is they've got your riding lawnmowers. They got your four-wheelers. They got your side-by-sides. They got your jet skis here in Florida. They've got just about anything you can imagine And if you've got the room for that, we've got to be able to loan on those things, because people just are going to have to part with something. And they'd rather part with something like that than their high-end jewelry, their wedding rings, that kind of stuff. Luxury handbags. Your average core customer does not have luxury handbags to loan on. Old jewelry. And what I mean by old jewelry is stuff that they're just not wearing. I'm not talking about your broken scrap gold, which they don't know what scrap means anyways. But I'm talking about your old jewelry that they haven't worn in years that's probably worth a lot of money. Multiple items, unused items. Like I said, if they got 5, 6, 7 different TVs, it's not a big deal for them to bring in one of those. So I want you to think about this up here. These are your core customers that we got to go after that currently don't exist. Most of these customers, if you did a demographic search, most of these people have taken a 10, 15, 20, 25% pay cut just to stay employed. If they haven't, they're very fortunate. They're very, very fortunate right now. Even if they haven't taken a pay cut, I can guarantee you that their bonus or commission in some way, shape, or form has been affected. This is our customer base that we have to go after. Okay, so how do we get to the upper middle class? This is interesting. We got to do SEO and internet advertising, and if that's not happening, we're going to have problems. Okay, we got to have direct and accurate social media marketing. Okay, so what people mean by that, or what I mean by that, and what people think I mean by that are two very different things. It has to be a very direct message, and it's got to be very accurate, and it's got to get people's attention, and it's got to get them to want to do some sort of interaction with you. The signage on and in and around your stores has to change. We've got to get after these people, and we're going to talk about what that looks like. We need to market to your current and prior sales customers. And some people think, well, why would I market to my sales customers? Well, the average sales customer will never do a pawn transaction with you. And, you know, I argue this back and forth. We've looked at and dumped the database. Show me your sale database. Show me your pawn and loan and buy database, right? The reality is maybe 3%, 5% of those customers cross over. And let's say, for argument's sake, that you're the expert, you're much better than that, and 50% of your customers do loans and do sales. I would probably say that that's never going to happen, but let's say you are that person, and that does happen in your stores. 50% of them still do not. So by reaching out to those sales customers and letting them know that you can get them cash fast might be all that it takes to spark some new loans within your business. Try it and see what happens. Tell your customers, trust me, they don't know what you think they know. We've got customers every single day that come into our store and say, I didn't know I could have more than one loan with you. Oh, I didn't know you guys loaned on these things. I didn't know you did this. I didn't know. Tell your customers, because they don't know. I don't care how many loans they've done with you. You need to have some conversation with them, and we're going to talk about that too. Get more involved in your community and spread the word. So one of the things that we included with all of these virtual folks, and then the folks that were online as well, or in person as well, was a link to a shared drive. And in that shared drive, there's a folder for every presenter, and every presenter's topics and handouts and everything else are going to be in there. In that, I included a ton of information for you guys in here, different pictures, different screenshots, different marketing ideas that you can utilize. So reach in there and pull some of that information out if you haven't done so already. You got to get more involved in the communities, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Like I said, create a new service, such as bridge loans or discrete loans or private loans or high-end loans or whatever you want to call them. But that's something you got to go after, and that can be done with business owners. It can be done with house flippers. It can be done with real estate moguls. It can be really done with anybody that's what we consider to be high-end. Okay, so here's some examples, right? So people say, well, okay, well, what am I gonna, what would I offer on, right? Here's some real examples of people that we know are current customers of ours, or both. You can just tell the customers what you want. We can offer loans from $5,000 to $500,000, and that's going to depend upon your state, of course, and your regulations there. But we buy and sell or loan on luxury handbags. Yes, we're open. We're loaning on these items. Tell your customers, okay, and they will come in. Here's some more examples. After the holidays, we loan back maximum value on your jewelry. We can do collateral loans of your luxury items. We pay top dollar for Rolex quality watches. When we put up that sign, the folks that we did that in 3 stores used to do maybe 3 a month. Now they're doing 13 a month. That's a big difference. You've more than tripled, almost basically more than quadrupled the amount of Rolex watches that you're taking in. Now, if we added that and we're able to get him to get that on his social media and his website, now what? Now what would happen, right? But that's just by telling the customers that come in the store what we do, okay? We've got to change our signage, guys. If a customer's standing there and he's doing a loan with you and all he sees is that back wall, usually he sees a sign that says no public bathroom or cash only for transactions or whatever we think is important. You know, wear your mask, right? You know, whatever we think is important right now, that's the kind of stuff that our customers see. This is what's important. This is what should be behind your line. This is what your customers should see. And this is what we need to tell them. This is the new age of pawn, guys. You got to get on the bus with it. So let's talk about business owners. What are their needs and what are their assets? When you think about a business owner, right? Business owners typically are going to have a lot more assets, but they're also going to have more and different needs. Not only are they going to have their personal needs, but they're going to have needs for the business, okay? So we made a list here to make it easy since we're doing a re-record here. We've got the need for payroll. They've got the need for paying monthly bills. They've got the need for paying back taxes. A lot of people aren't paying taxes right now and haven't since March. That's going to haunt them later on, and they know it, and maybe they're already in trouble with that. Repair or looting costs. We had people at the conference and people tuning in for the conference that had their businesses rioted and looted and vandalized. Some of them were burned to the freaking ground. They got nothing left. They're starting over. We've got rent and mortgage issues with these people. They got to pay rent and mortgage. And if the PPP is gone or they didn't get it, how are they going to pay that? How are they going to stay in business? Personal obligations, we talked about that. So they got bills just like you and I on top of their business bills. How do we get that paid? And if they stop taking a salary like tons of business owners that I know did, right? Now they can't even take care of their personal obligations because they don't have enough money coming in from the business, and they had to stop paying themselves so that they keep people on staff and stay in business. It's crazy. And they got to pay other debt, right? So if they're just trying to weather the storm and hopefully get through this, Corona deal, and hopefully next year things are looking better in their projection and in their mind, they just need to keep paying the minimum on some of this debt to keep going. You can help them do that with a short-term collateral loan, okay? So what are their assets? A lot of people are going to have different assets, but they're going to have property in some cases. They're going to have different pieces of property. They're going to have larger types of equipment. Think about a general contractor. They're going to have some large pieces of equipment, heavy equipment. Those are the types of things that, if you got 3 skid loaders, you got 3 of this, maybe I could do without one, and you can get a loan on one. They're going to have fixtures and furnishings and artwork and vehicles and all kinds of other things within their personal life, but also their business that we can have access to. Tools, and I'm not talking about like your average $12 drill. I'm talking about some high-end tools. If these people are in HVAC or they're in trades like plumbing, electrical stuff, they're going to have some pretty high-end tools that we can loan on, and they're going to want them back because they need them back. So I want you guys to change your mindset and think about who we are, who we're going to have to go after, and what that looks like within your business, and we have to change, guys. So what do house flippers have in common with both of these? House flippers are very unique. In my experience with house flippers, and some of you may already do this already and may own real estate, so this is not a shot on you, but most of them that I meet look and act like they have a lot of money, and they're typically very cash strapped from month to month because they're typically carrying more than one mortgage or note on a property. They're waiting and begging and praying for one of them to sell that they just made a massive investment in. And they got contractors that they're paying to fix the other stuff that they're working on. So they typically have a need for very serious short-term cash. And we've made a fortune in other pawn shops and high-end places that are doing loans to these people because they're your hardcore customer. Probably 99% of them are going to redeem, probably actually closer to about 95%, honestly. I don't want to mislead you, but about 95% of them in our experience continue to reloan with you and redeem with you, pay on time, because they don't want to lose whatever high-end item you gave them. So let's look at these folks a little bit. And I told you, I said, ask a realtor if you don't believe me. Is it harder to get a second or third real estate loan currently? I can tell you from personal experience, moving down to Florida, right? Doesn't matter how good your credit are. It doesn't matter how much money you're putting down. Unless you're paying cash, good luck. You're going to have a hard time getting those second and third property mortgages because banks are just not willing to extend themselves right now. You can be pre-approved all you want. When it comes time to closing, these things just aren't happening. So now imagine being a real estate guy who's got a personal mortgage He's got a property that he's got on Hawk, right? Because he's remodeling it. He's got another one that's just online listed, hoping to sell, and he's grabbing the next property, hopefully, to get financed with a down payment while these other ones are in limbo while he's trying to make those things work. A lot of balls up in the air and a lot of things that he's got to be able to work with, he or she, and we've got to be able to figure out how to help them out with a short-term loan. Best part about the stuff that we do is it doesn't show up on the books, so they love it. They can get 20, 30, 40 grand from you guys in a form of a loan. It doesn't show up on the books anywhere, okay? All right, so we've talked about all of those different categories. Now we're going to talk about what else are we missing, okay? And this is what, for the most part, we've been teaching for 10 or 12 years, and it's really hard for some reason to get this out to the general public. And it's even harder, honestly, to get you pawnbrokers to embrace some of this, and I'm not sure why. But if we can't embrace this now during COVID-19 and when your loan balance is down 20, 30, 40, 50, 60%, I talked to a guy yesterday, it's 80%. If we can't embrace some of this stuff right now and change, nothing's going to get you guys to change. But I want you to really think about this and embrace it, okay? So studies have shown that less than 10% of the entire population use us for loans. We already talked about that. But did you also know that 10% of your sales customers or less will ever write a loan with us? I can prove it statistically. We've done data dumps with PawnMaster software. We've done data dumps with Bravo software. We've seen, listen, this your customer, same customer that does sales does not do loans. And we can prove it. If you don't believe me, do it yourself in your own store. Almost 80% of your customers have a loan with your competitor too. Have you ever wondered why? Between those two things right there, your sales customers never doing loans with you and your current customers doing loans with other people, right there cost you nothing. And how much could you grow your loan balance if you were to attract those types of people back into your store and actually do those transactions in your store, not somewhere else? It's crazy. We can never assume that a sales customer is never going to need money. How did you get the high-end item that you just sold that sales customer? You got it from somebody just like them that put it on loan. Okay? Tell your customers what you want, what you're about, how you operate, how you can get them money fast, and watch it happen. Even if 1% of your customers every year flipped and started doing this, what's that impact? It's massive. Customers bring in what we tell them and what they see. So during, COVID-19, we're out of gaming systems. We're out of large TVs. We're out of anything that everybody's going to use to stay sequestered in their house, right? Customers aren't going to bring those things in, even if they're new customers, okay? So we've got to be able to figure out how to make some of those things work. We talked about a gentleman at the show. We talked about a gentleman who does Nikes, right? And we've actually had probably 5 clients in the last year. Hadn't really seen that up until the last couple of years. But we had about 5 of them. One of them used to have them right behind the front counter. And when we changed, long story short, when we changed the Nikes to Louis Vuittons and handbags, guess what customers started bringing in? They still brought in the Nikes because we had that hardcore customer base now because people saw them behind the counter forever. But they started bringing in things we actually really wanted. It's not that we don't want Nikes, but I'll take a Louis every single day. I don't know about you guys. That's the kind of stuff that we want to start bringing in, okay? So they bring in what they see and what we tell them. And again, we talk about that sign behind the loan counter. If we've got a sign that says, listen, cash only transactions type of a thing, instead of the top 5 items or whatever we should be looking for, we're missing a boat, guys. And more people need money now than ever, but we aren't seeing it in loans. I'm telling you right now, man, it's like people think everything is okay on the outside and the economy is doing well and people are doing great. But it's kind of like the analogy, right? If you drink battery acid, it's going to kill you on the inside. You don't really look bad on the outside, okay? The problem with that is eventually you're going to rot from the inside out, and you're going to start to see all of this pain and sin and everything else that's going on right now within these people's lives and in their business. You can't continue to operate the way we have been, cash strapped and borrowing money from the government or getting, interest-free loans from the government and still running at 15, 20, 30, 40% of what you used to run at. It's not possible, guys. And so we've got to be able to capitalize on those people that need that money, okay? So here's your guys' action plan, and you're going to get this. It's actually in the notes and in that shared drive. But I would take some notes. This is where I'd start to really honestly evaluate yourself and say, listen, what am I missing? What do I need to actually do differently? Review and replace all the signage in your business, on your business, which is your windows, your building, if you're fortunate enough to have a big sign outside, in your social media and on your website. And all that signage should point towards multiple things that we're going to talk about here in a minute called your top 5. Every single customer that comes into your store, you can do more than one loan. They should not leave without knowing they can do more than one loan with us. Well, I see this person every day for 16 years. I don't care. I literally don't care if you've seen this person every month for 16 years. I want you to tell that person and every other person that they can have more than one loan with you, and you're the money man or money woman. You can get them any amount of money they need. Because a percentage of it, even if it's 1%, what if it's 80%? Whoa, I didn't know you could do more than one loan. I'm going to stop going to this guy over there. They're not going to be embarrassed about it anymore because, listen, I'm your buddy. I'm your money guy. I can get you any amount of money you need. There's no reason to go over to that guy or gal over there, okay? That's how you need to present it. You're there as their friend to back them. This is the opportunity we have, okay? We say to do that during the pawn ticket script, and there's actually an example of that pawn ticket script within the shared drive. So print that down, pull it down, customize it slightly. But you can tell the customer, I don't care if they've been in your store for 16 years. This is the item that I'm loaning on. This is how much money I'm giving you today. This is a payback in 30 days. Interest is accruing every 30 days or whatever it is in your state. This is the payback amount. If you cannot pay back this full amount, bring in this dollar amount in interest and we'll renew our deal. You can have more than one loan with us, and if you need any more cash, bring in one of these top 5 items and we'll get you that money fast today. I guarantee your loan balance will grow. It's absolutely statistically, physically impossible. If you did that with 100% of your customers that came in your door, it's physically impossible to not grow from there. Define your top 5 items, okay? So you need to have a top 5 items of what is your top 5 things you want to bring in the store, right? Luxury handbags, luxury watches, you know, whatever. Don't just say tools, be specific, okay? Figure out what that is for your store and then make some signage like we showed earlier, okay? Top 3 luxury items. So these are luxury items. So these are things that you probably didn't have or aren't talking about. And this would be your luxury handbags or luxury watches. And we had great presentations on both of those at the Pawn Conference here. And those are available to stream. You've got to be able to target specific items that you want to grow because people bring in what they see and what you tell them to. And then tell your retail customers that they can get cash. Now, people argue with me all the time. We spend more time fighting about it than just doing this darn thing, and I wish we would just do it. And here's what people say, well, I'm going to offend my sales customer if I tell them they can get cash fast. Here's the deal. You're not going to offend your sales customer because if you walk up to them and said, thank you for the purchase of your Rolex, and I know when you're broke in a month, bring it back in and I'll loan on it. Yeah, you might piss some people off. But that's not how we talk to customers, right? We got to have some common sense. We're not going to say that to customers. We're going to look at them and say, thank you for your purchase today. You're a valued customer of ours. By the way, if you know anyone that's looking, these are the top 5 items that we pay top dollar for, and we'll turn these things into cash in the form of a loan or buying them from people. Guess what? They're going to remember that. And so you said exactly what you said before without degrading them or making them feel bad or upsetting the customer base. We've got to use some common sense and use some psychology on these people. So here's some examples. This is what should be behind your counter. These are real clients of ours, right? So if you're just a jewelry store like the Gold Dollar Exchange in Toronto, be specific on what you want. They expanded and did luxury handbags and laptops or electronics like iPads and tablets and that kind of stuff, right? Because they had the room for them. So be specific and ask for those things, right? Down there in California, they did top dollar, Rolex watches, diamonds, gold and silver coins. That's very specific than just saying jewelry, okay? Do you see the difference? That's the stuff we have to get at and go after. And if this is on your signs and people see it as they drive by and it's on your social media and it's on your website, it becomes the standard and branding of your business and people bring that stuff in. On the left, fine jewelry, firearms, gold, and vehicles. This is what they do for their luxury items, their top 3 to 5 luxury items. A lot of opportunity and examples. That's what should be behind your customer when they're looking at you. In case your staff is lazy or they forget or they get busy and they don't hand out a top 5 card, this does some of the work for them. Okay, gets the discussion going. Continue on your action plan. Never, ever, ever let a customer leave without a flyer for your top 5 or your luxury top 3, and you get to choose on that, right? So if it's a customer that maybe just bought a luxury item, they should get the luxury top 3. Listen, these are the things we turn into cash. If you or someone you know has some of these laying around, we'll turn them into money for you right now, right? That's the kind of stuff we've got to be able to hand. If you did that to all your sales customers, and between 5 and 10% of them came over and started doing loans with you, what would happen to your loan balance? It would be massive, especially if they did more than one loan with you, because you're going to tell every customer they can have more than one loan. It's crazy. We've got to change the way we think, guys. We've got to create social media ads targeting different things. Social media percentage is up 400% since COVID-19 hit in March. 400%. That means people are on their devices more than they ever have been. But what we're seeing is people are advertising less. They're pulling their advertising budget. They're pulling social media. The only thing that's out there right now is political BS. We've got to do a better job of advertising and targeting these people. And so I want you to do 3 ads. Number 1, targeting business owners, like with all the stuff we talked about, right? What they have for assets and what their needs are. Create an ad based on that. We help people with that all the time. Create an ad for house flippers. Are you in need of a short-term loan so you can flip your next house? That's pretty direct, pretty clear. Someone like me that's a house flipper or whatever, I'm going to know that. I'm going to figure that out, exactly what these guys are offering. And then lastly, create one for high-end loans and business owners, okay? Larry Davis, who was one of the presenters for marketing for years for us, has done a free website and SEO review. I can't tell you the great feedback we get from these people, and yet people will struggle and fight with us and not want to do these, and they're free. I just can't figure it out. It's free. It's literally free. You don't have to spend a nickel, and he's not going to hound you. Trust me. He's got enough of these thrown at him every month that he doesn't need to. So do a review and see what your customers are clicking on, and it ain't you. It's not good. Marketing for social media for general contractors. That's a big one. So even in Florida here, there are down times of the season. If you're a general contractor and you have large tools or large equipment, you might have 3, 4, 5 of the same items. Maybe you could do without one, and we can store that for you until the time you need it. And then what works really well that we've been saying for years is when they come back in to pick the item up, sell them some more tools. Sell them some other stuff. It's crazy. New in town. This is a big one. If you're new in town, how do you know who we are and what we do? You don't. Unless you're one of the 10% that uses a pawn shop, you're never even going to know to Google or look for a pawn shop in your area. So we need to do some marketing here. And here's an area where we might need to spend a little bit of money. Do an every door direct mail, or just target certain apartment complexes. One of the things that we did all the time, we're going to talk about it here at the end, is we solved the problem of the property managers, okay? So I used to walk in, and I learned this from the payday loan industry. This alone, if you did just this is guaranteed to make a huge impact in your loan balance. We would walk in to these property management places, and sometimes we'd have an appointment, but usually we wouldn't. We would just walk in and bring them a small box of cookies, or bring them a couple sandwiches for lunch, which is tough with COVID right now. But we would go in and do those things, and we would say, listen, I'm not going to take a bunch of your time, but do you have 5 minutes for me? I can solve the 2 problems you have. And they would look at me and say, what do you know about my problems? And you'd look at them and say, well, I know that you have 2 problems. Number 1, people struggle to get the deposit to move in for rent. And then number 2, they struggle with paying their rent on time, and they look at you like you're some sort of mystical creature, like, oh my God, how do you know what my problems are? Because it's common sense. People struggle to pay their mortgage, they struggle to pay their rent on time, and apartment complexes and condos are no different. And so where these property managers become your ally is they are paid and bonused and commissioned on the percentage of occupancy, which is helped by the fact that if you can get somebody to deposit money, they can move in a lot easier. Number 2, they're paid and bonused and commissioned on percentage of occupancy, right? Or I'm sorry, it's percentage of people that are paid on time. So if you can fix that problem by getting somebody a short-term loan, guess what? They're going to be your best friend. They're going to hand out your stuff for you all the time. And it amazed me. I've seen this in pawn too, but it specifically worked, especially in the payday loan industry. We would walk in and talk to a property manager, go to 4 other properties. We'd go back to the store, and we would see that with the first property manager that we had talked to getting a loan for themselves, or had sent somebody over with one of the flyers we gave them, and it had already worked. We had already gotten a return on that investment immediately. If you aren't doing this, do it and try it. Very simple, very low cost. It costs you time and a handful of flyers, discussion with people. A loyalty program's another one. So if we want our customers to do more than one loan with us, what incentive do they have to do that? It's also a way to market, hey, this is who we are and this is what we do, guys, okay? Email and text reminders. We see Pawnmaster sends us emails all the time because we're on their email list that tells us how many hundreds of thousands of text messages went out. Guess what? It's a great way to let customers know their loan is due, but you can also tell them who we are and what we do. Need cash fast? This is our top 5. Why can't you do that? Most of you guys aren't even collecting email addresses. It's crazy. Well, people don't want to give us one. Guess what? I'll get almost anybody's email address just by saying the simple thing. Can you verify your email address for me? They think you already have it. Get their email addresses. No more excuses. Marketing for big boy toys. We talked about that. And then maximize the deals. We've talked about this already, right? So if somebody's coming in, are we maximizing those deals? Are they walking out? Let's say they come in and they got something that we don't want, right? Or something we don't take in the stores, right? We should pretty much try to take everything nowadays, but if there's something that we can't take or don't want to take, then guess what? They better leave with a top 5 flyer. These are the things that we pay top dollar for, and we can get you cash in hand right now. That's called maximizing it, because the reality is if we look at an item and we say, nope, I don't want that, and we hand it back to the customer, we're not going to do a transaction with those people typically, okay, ever again. And so we've got to be able to fix that and maximize that. We've got to be able to look at what we're loaning on. So the other way to maximize what's coming in is if Johnny Toolboy has brought in a tool for the last 10 years, and it's the same tool, and we've been paying him $100 on that tool for the last 10 years, guess what? Johnny Toolboy's got other stuff. Okay, he's got a TV. He's got probably one of everything on that top 5 list that you created. So what you look at Johnny and say is, guess what, buddy? You've been great at this. I've been loaning you $100 on this for 16 years, man. If you need more than this $100, bring in one of these items and I'll get you even more money. Guess what Johnny's going to do? He's going to bring in more stuff, different stuff, and things on your top 5 so that he can get more money. And now you've changed the menu mix and what's coming into your store, and you're already working through that stuff. It's a great opportunity, guys, for you to figure that out. We've got to be able to move forward. We've got to be able to change and adapt who we are. And if you did nothing else from this, take my advice and get the free website review from Larry. Talk to your property managers and create a flyer and a program for that. Create your top 5. Go after those folks and really try to maximize what's going on within your store. So if somebody's bringing in a tool and you got 50 of those other tools on your shelf, change it up. Tell them, listen, buddy, I can get you more money. Bring in this. Bring in these kinds of things and I can get you more cash. That's just where we're at. I'm Vernon Stading with Devoted Pawn Consulting. We're always here for you. If you got any questions on this, just call us. Don't be afraid. We don't charge. We're here to help this industry. We want you guys to be successful. And even though some of the things we talked about were painful and potentially maybe even angered some of you guys, we don't want that. We want you guys to know that we're on your team. And the reality is if we can't work together and we can't stop the bleeding in our loan balances, this industry is really going to struggle in the next year. It's going to put a lot of folks out of business. And the phone calls we get are not good. In fact, there's a couple days a month I've had to turn off the phone because it's a lot of doom and gloom with what we're getting. If you follow some of the simple stuff we gave you, the loans will return. And then if life goes back to normal, you're already ahead of the curve. You're already ahead of your competitors. You're already ahead of the 15,000 people that didn't attend this conference. And we've got an opportunity here to make some major impact, take some massive market share, especially away from the big boys. And you've got a way for you guys to be successful. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Call us with any questions, and we hope all is well in your stores in Pondland.